We're live. We are live.
No.
We're live. So it's going to have to be okay.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the Council of Fans podcast. Our normal host, Fellowship, is away to parts unknown. Hopefully the agents at Amazon haven't gotten him, so I'll be filling in for him today. Joining us today are Galaphane of TolkienTube.
Great to be here.
We're live. We are live.
Everyone's favorite
We're
elf,
live.
Nikki.
So it's going to have to be okay.
and Melanin.
All right, the always charming Jen. Hin. Our normal host, Fellowship. And last but not least, the lovely Lakitia. And a big thank you for Kyle for keeping everything running behind the scenes. So today we'll be discussing everyone's second favorite elven mastersmith, the fascinating Celebrimbor. But before we do that, we had thought we should address a topic that's probably going to be in the forefront of everyone's minds. As most of you know by now, we announced last Friday that Fellowship of Fans will now be able to work with Amazon to create content based upon official news. So what does that mean?
This is probably going to end up in a compilation too, so let's just clarify. We are woke shilling for Amazon.
That's right.
Just to get that out there.
Absolutely.
We're getting those Bezos bucks.
That's right. So, but what this really means is we'll be able to receive content drops from Amazon, such as those posters they released back in February, and we may be given some warning prior to the release of new marketing material, such as the next trailer. We don't know when that's coming, so don't ask. This partnership could also culminate in being able to report to you exclusively from promotional events. And so we're pretty excited about what this could mean for all of us. And if that can get Nikki on the set, behind in front of the camera, I'm all for it.
Agreed. Yeah. I'll just say quickly, like the bottom line is that nothing here is changing. And, anyone who wants to challenge us on that can come on the Tolkien debate show and we can have a chat about it.
Exactly. If you're concerned about us selling out or shilling, rest assured we are committing to remain aloof and skeptical of Amazon's upcoming show that is surely set to redefine television as we know it and may even bring peace to the world, especially Hin's traditionally volatile corner in the Middle East.
Yeah. I mean, it's only. I think it's only fair to say that in the recent, I won't say weeks, but like certainly from after the trailer really sunk in, both you and myself have been more negative than we were before, not more positive, even with this business with Amazon on the. I mean, it's not. It really hasn't changed.
It's just.
It has no reason to change our opinions. It's just.
It just wasn't a great teaser. It wasn't bad. I guess it wasn't. It was bad in that it really didn't do anything to move the needle. And in my personal circles of people who've watched the movies, enjoyed them, moved on with their lives, may have read the books a decade or two ago, they would be hard pressed to name a single thing that they saw in it, which is not what you want at this stage of the marketing.
Yeah. But my point is, like, we're not like this business of getting a heads up on news releases from Amazon hasn't changed the way we talk about it, think about it, anything really.
Yeah, nothing's changed. Our content's staying the same. We'll be able to hopefully have some additional content, just official stuff rather than the regular content that we normally have.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy because I think we already pump out 3 videos a week or something like that.
2 to 3, yeah.
Quite a lot.
Yeah.
No. And as leaks come, we will still share them. So those of you who are watching who know stuff, don't be afraid to let us know.
Yeah. Well said.
All right. So now let's turn to the subject of the video. Celebrimbor. So, as we all know, he is said to have been seduced by Sauron to creating the rings. And Sauron, we know from Unfinished Tales, gives him some pretty flowery speeches. But there's a whole lot of wiggle room with what you can do with that character. How do we think he should be portrayed in the show? And let's just go alphabetically, starting with Hin.
What was the question again?
How do you think? Yeah, come on. You just lost your turn. You're next. For being mean, you go.
No, let Han do the talking, otherwise he'll be unbearable for the rest of the podcast.
Wow.
Shots. This is early for this to be happening.
Wow.
Much
Yeah.
love.
It's okay. I mean, what was the question?
Let me use few words here. How do you think Celebrimbor, the elf that makes the rings, should be portrayed in the show? The
Okay,
Amazon
okay.
show.
Yeah.
The reason we're all
Amazon
here.
show.
Okay.
Yeah, the Rings of Power. Yeah, that one. Right? I think I got that right. Yeah.
That I still prefer untitled Amazon production, but sure, let's roll.
Yeah. Sure, that's a better title. I think, you know, I like tragic heroes. I like them when they're kind of lovable at the beginning. You know, if you skip the lovable at the beginning part, I think it tends not to be as good. So, you know, having be, a fairly sympathetic character, but obviously very burdened from the outset,
Mhm.
that's the right way to do it, I think. And also have, I think, something very important to tragic characters. Have, the idea that a character is going to die shouldn't be played up for shock value, like as a surprise, and it should be like something they should feel foredoomed. You know, that's, I think, very important for tragic heroes. Like, you don't go watching Oedipus and then be surprised that he dies. Gouges his eyes out, doesn't die, but you get my point.
Right, Laketia, now's your chance to go after him.
Okay, Kyle isn't gonna chime in.
No, you guys go ahead.
Okay.
Oh.
I was actually thinking I kind of would like to see it not exactly the other way around, but I was thinking that maybe he could start as a bit of more of a gray character, somebody who's maybe a little bit controversial, and then eventually, having his whole tragic heroic arc played out, having us sympathize with him much more. Like, we don't know for sure where his story is gonna begin, but I think they could potentially be starting off with him in Linden, and then establishing his needs to set up his own realm. And one way they could be going about it is, of course, having him have any sort of discontent with the way Gil-galad runs things, etc. So I could see them going that route as well, and then eventually through the creation of the rings, and then of course through him being put through such an ordeal by the end of his life, having the audiences come to sympathize with him that much more. So that's one way.
I didn't think of that, yeah. Because they are condensing time in order to put a lot of events into the show, so why not put Celebrimbor establishing his realm, rather than what I naturally assumed, which is start when his realm is already, up and running. But yeah, I didn't think of that, yeah.
About that, I want to chime in one other thing. Why I really feel that we could see the establishment of Austin Ethel, or if they're just going to be calling it Eregion, is because we see on the hands posters we saw Elrond with a scroll, and I believe it was Eregion view from the south, something like that, or the King Square view from the south, and it also said Eregion somewhere, something like that. So I'm thinking that as they're establishing Elrond to be this architect, this could potentially be him constructing Eregion in the first place. So,
Yeah, that's I just didn't think of that. Yeah. It's
but
Celebrimbor, I think the picture was Celebrimbor. Elrond was the one with the
potentially.
staff,
Okay,
right?
okay, fair enough.
Yeah, but I get your point. Yeah.
I just wanted to say one other thing that maybe contradicts what my original statement, and that's the fact that Celebrimbor has throughout the lore, he's never been a particularly negative figure. Like, he even distanced himself from the acts of his, close family, like from his father and his uncle, I believe. And he very, very early on, he showed that he's not going to participate in, the evil deeds of the House of Feanor. So maybe what you said originally would be the better way. So to have him, to have the show start with a very, very positive figure of Celebrimbor.
Yeah, I think that's very important for tragic.
The
figures, 'cause
rivalry,
yeah.
the rivalry between those three houses of the Noldor could be a gold mine of possible conflict. Maybe not stabbing you, but there's definitely distrust and reputation. Kyle?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's also something to be said to what you've all said so far in the reveal we had recently that the other characters would view Celebrimbor as an angelic figure. Maybe we can touch on that a bit.
And that has always surprised me because that's not. I'd never envisioned him that. I always thought of him as either some artist or someone controversial just because of his heritage.
Yeah, burdened, I think, with his heritage, yeah.
Yeah, we haven't heard from Nikki or Gallifane yet. So, what do you
Well,
want to jump in?
I was nicely, kindly waiting my turn, as you said, with the alphabetical order that we kind of just forgot about. Anyway,
Sorry, blonde. You know what happens.
yes. Well, thank you for that.
Well, hey, it takes one to know one, so I understand. It's our burden to live with. We're cute, but reading is hard.
Yeah, I feel
And
very
humble as
burdened.
well.
Very, very burdened. Yes. Well, I fully agree with what everyone else has said. I don't feel like there's too much that I have to add, but what I want to say is that it's important that a character like Celebrimbor doesn't become flat just because he has a set end, and he has some points that he has to go through. The arch can still be dramatic enough for people to care about him. Even if they know his story already, it should be played in a way that makes people still care and makes people want to follow his journey and be curious about what's going to happen next, even though they kind of know. And that's kind of one of the things that I think they would have to make sure of for many of the characters, just because it's like they're already written, so it's just
Yeah, I'd agree. And honestly, Celebrimbor's not a hard character to make interesting just because he's really like not necessarily the main focus of the Second Age, but he's definitely up there. He's very involved with a lot of like the plot twists and stuff like that. So it would be pretty impossible for Amazon to really make him a boring character unless they're really, really that inept, which they probably are not. Hopefully.
Yeah, they
Well,
could
tell-
make them. Yeah, they could make him too like you know. It's very easy to make tragic characters not lovable enough early on. So
Yeah.
that's the one thing that.
And they
where
could
they're so
also
rude, yeah.
probably the quickest way to sort of ruin his character, in my opinion, would just to be kind of cliched and stereotypical with the character. That kind of personally brings me way out of the story.
The most interesting thing about Celebrimbor is out of all the characters, he probably should have the most face-to-face interaction with Sauron.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that too.
100%,
That's very
yeah.
important. Yes.
Yeah, well,
And
that's
I would
an,
like to see him change throughout it too. Like, you know how
Yeah, he
like
does.
but I would like to see them do that or portray it properly in the show, because sometimes they just skip stuff that they shouldn't skip.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just it's a risky thing. And it's the same with them, like if they start with him having like core villain sort of mindset from the beginning.
Yeah, that's right.
He
Yeah,
becomes
that's what I was
really
saying,
flat.
yeah.
He becomes really boring, and it's hard to sort of care about him. But
Yes.
if you see he's conflicted, if you see him going from good to through his struggles and then regret and pain and all of that, then
Yes.
yeah, he quickly becomes probably one of the best characters, at least in the first few seasons.
Yes, that's basically my point. Yeah, that it's much more interesting to see a character go from good to bad than from bad to worse, because for one thing, it's a bigger contrast. But there are we invest more. You know, there are other reasons. You know.
Do we see it as like a potential issue that we won't necessarily see any interaction between Celebrimbor and Sauron in the first season at all? Or is that a good way to establish Celebrimbor's character first and then introduce that element?
I don't know. I don't mind. I mean, like, that's an aspect, although I do fear that season 1 might feel a little bit too table setting, as in, like, oh, there's like a mini series and then there's the Rings of Power, you know? Like,
Yeah.
but at the same time, in this particular regard, not necessarily. Well, but it's the sort of thing that is hard to judge in advance, I guess.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I would be fine with him not having that, at least for the first half, maybe the whole thing. Just because it is character building and it is a big change in his life and in who he is when he meets Sauron and when that whole arch happens. So it would be nice for them to take their time and establish who he really is before all this.
We mentioned one of us said what goes from good to bad. Do you think that is how he's going to be portrayed, as good to bad, or should he be, or can he be a guy who is otherwise good yet makes mistakes and in the end has bad things happen to him? So
it's just
again, tragic.
It's just a way to kind of describe it, but it's not. He doesn't go bad per se. But yeah, you get my point though. He should be less fallible at the beginning than further down the line, I guess. Should be more aspirational.
Shadow of War. I think if he is a good guy who gets fooled, that's a much better sort of characterization of him, especially because Pharazôn, granted, he was already sort of evil to begin with. He's the one who really gets turned, to like sacrifices.
It's the same idea. That's actually something that I think is remarkably overlooked sometimes, which is the thing that happens to Pharazôn is kind of the same thing that happens to Celebrimbor, only by the power of 100, but it's the same idea, like Dark Lord in Benevolent Guise turns the heart of a lord against, it's the same basic idea. And if you do it right, you can kind of play up the parallels and things. But yeah, in both cases,
it's definitely very similar, but there's still the difference of Pharazôn was much more morally corrupt than Celebrimbor, both at the beginning, like when he met Annatar, and at the end when they both.
But even in that case, I would prefer that he would be more sympathetic in the beginning rather than just be, a bad bill of goods from the very start, because that's just not very, it's less engaging.
Yeah.
And the contrast is much smaller.
So, well, let's move on here. The OneRing.net reported that Tom Budge was originally cast for Celebrimbor before being replaced by Charles Edwards after having shot for several months. So Budge has a much more youthful face than Edwards, but the role has been described as angelic. What do you guys make of that? Between the two of them, I'd say, well, I can see Budge as looking angelic. Edwards, a couple decades ago, I mean, de-aging is a thing, but it's much cheaper just to cast someone that looks younger, if that's what you want to do.
I mean, he's got good ears and a jawline for an elf, I guess.
Yeah, just a little past his prime, if you ask me. But
is the description of the original casting?
No.
No, we don't have a character description for Celebrimbor, sadly.
Mm-hmm.
But he's described as angelic.
Yeah.
Where?
The angelic thing? I can't remember where that came from.
Yeah, there's been so many.
Yeah, I think that was a leak from us. We leaked that.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, we leaked that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Whoops.
That's okay.
Anyway.
No, that's okay. We all lose track. It's totally fine.
I just wanted to say that I always thought that Tom Budge was a really odd choice for Celebrimbor as well.
I haven't seen him in anything.
I haven't either, but I think he's done a lot of comedy.
Okay.
I think he's got of course, a lot can be done with makeup and with acting, obviously, but he's got this baby face, and I always felt that Celebrimbor should be a little bit sturdier. You know, he's a smith after all. I know he's an elven smith, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Tom Badge always struck me as a really weird, like,
Well, that's kind of reminiscent of the arguments people say, how can this person play this role? They're too pretty, they're too frail. And I'd say it's you've never heard of personal trainers or a gym membership? I mean, come on. Just give it a couple of months and they'll look the parts.
Yeah.
I mean, in this picture, I like when I first saw the casting and we found out.
Can you send a link? Can you send a link to Kyle so he can put that on the stream?
I have a couple photos
it's
up right
already
now,
there.
yeah.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, that's why I was talking about it. But yeah, he like I didn't have a problem with that. I found it fascinating the comment that he said about they decided to take the character in another direction, which is why he said something about that in one of his posts on Instagram when he left, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I just assumed it was something else, but it could be just the fact that they wanted him to start off younger, and then they sort of after a while decided, no, he's gonna be more mature from the start, I suppose, because they realized time compression thing didn't really work with him as young, and then blah blah blah, because he's gonna look the same because he's an elf, right?
There is a point here, though, that I was swearing like Kidia would mention, which is that almost all the major male elf roles are cast pretty old.
yeah, much older than the female ones.
Much older than the female ones.
female
Like Benjamin Walker is quite old for they all are, many of them. It's an interesting choice.
And if you contrast that to like Orlando Bloom, who was like, what, 18? Or I actually think it was 18.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
20. Yeah,
Yeah.
20.
Something,
Yeah, basically, you couldn't really get anyone younger than that. And I think the only old actor was Hugo Weaving, but he was still only like 40, early 40s. He granted he was, like, 50 in Hobbit, but he was just
everyone's
coming back from
favorite.
Lord of the Rings.
Everyone's favorite teleporno. That's Celeborn for you noobs. He was a bit older. He was in his 30s. Forget the actor, early 30s. And Gil-galad, he that only appeared in a brief frame of the movie.
That doesn't count.
He was much older. So does that really count?
I don't think teleporno counts either, but
How dare you?
Why are we talking about this?
Let's boot him now.
Oh my gosh.
I just want to say that I think Lee Pace was a little bit older as well. Like he was in his late 30s as well or something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think either way, it's obviously an intentional choice, especially for them to move from, a relatively younger actor to a relatively older actor. So, hopefully they we can keep that in mind, and hopefully we'll be able to see what that intention is on screen.
in Lee Pace, he was like late 30s, but he looked very young, but he did look kind of wise and stuff like that. Whereas Charles Edwards, being like probably late 50s now, he doesn't look that angelic. He does look a little bit older now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think casting people in their 30s can carry that bit of gravitas that an 18, 19, 20-year-old will struggle to.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's difficult.
Yeah, but the one problem that I do see here is the fact that Celebrimbor the actor is specifically looks that much older than Galadriel, and they're supposed to be, of a similar age. So either that's just not gonna be touched upon, or there's gonna be some story-related reason for his slightly more advanced aging. But that's
he was stressed out by what his grandfather was up to in the first stage, so that might happen.
Stress gets to you.
Yeah, because Galadriel didn't have anything to stress over, right?
Especially in this iteration.
I mean, if your dad is Finarfin, you had a happy childhood.
Yeah, childhood.
But if you contrast that to like Gandalf, I know when Frodo and Gandalf, it wasn't when they first met, but before Gandalf like basically disappeared for 17 years, He was still like an old wizard and everything like that, but when he came back, Frodo described him as looking much older, but it was particularly just
stress.
like a
Well,
slightly
yeah.
what was it, like longer
He said-
eyebrows, grayer beard, and mostly older eyes, which is something that Tolkien really describes a lot, is the eyes, like with Elrond. So
Yes.
that canonically, that's probably the way that they should do that, but at the same time, it's kind of hard to just show old eyes.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing that works as a description on the page, not as a visual. Yeah, but you get the point though. Yeah, he like was aged by stress and by being burdened with things. Yeah.
I mean,
And just
they
hard
did.
work, you know.
Yeah, they did the whole, like when they did The Hobbit, Legolas was older than or Orlando Bloom was older than he was in The Lord of the Rings, but they made him look younger. I mean, it was a bit
Not
extreme
really.
with the CGI.
They did CGI him. They just added a little exposure on his face, really, didn't they?
His
His
eyes
jaw
as
was a lot
well.
different.
And
Yeah.
Lee Pace was
I think
older, or sorry, Orlando Bloom was
Lee
older
Pace.
than Lee Pace at that time.
Yes.
He was, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, and now we've come a lot further than that when it comes to how skilled people are with digital CGI. So they can still do stuff, and now I think they can do it and make it look more natural.
Absolutely.
I mean, considering the budget they have on each episode of this
Yep.
show, they have the budget to make this look really good instead of
Yeah.
cutting corners on things like that because it's too expensive. But it is a weird thing. Like it's a weird choice, and I don't think we're gonna be able to make sense of it until we see the show. But I think it's one of those things that when we see it, we're gonna be like, "Oh, that's why." Okay, and then
Mhm.
it's either gonna be, "That's awesome," or it's gonna be, "What? That's stupid." You know, it's either or.
Yeah. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
We'll file that next to Meteor Man. Let's see how that works on screen.
Yeah.
All right, so we had recently shared a list of requests from Christopher Tolkien. One of those requests was that people who die in this setting should not survive to the end of it, should not make it through. So we know that Celebrimbor's death is pretty gruesome. You guys, do you think we can get away with that? And who wants to share for the viewers who don't know the circumstances of his demise?
Not me.
I think we should let Tolkien Tube
Yeah.
have the honor.
Go for it.
Absolutely. What was the question? Summarize Celebrimbor's death?
How to summarize Celebrimbor's death? You know, you don't have to act it out. No drama here, but just.
Oh yeah,
you know.
that's
You could,
for
though.
Keep it
later.
academic, please. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So basically, Celebrimbor and Annatar meet. Annatar seduces Celebrimbor, not in a literal way, unless you're on Twitter. And so basically,
Let the shippers
makes
have their
all
fun.
rings. Yeah, I really don't want to do that, but sure. Basically, they become friends. Celebrimbor makes all the rings except for the one evil ring. He also makes the 3 elven ring stuff. You know, all that. That's probably a little bit too much backstory. Then eventually, Annatar goes to Mordor, makes a 1 ring, and when he does that, Celebrimbor and all of the Gwaith Myrmidine, they know that Annatar did that because they had the rings on and stuff. So they instantly hid the rings, and Annatar, or I guess Sauron, I should say at this point, he came back to Eregion and he said, "Hey, I want all the rings back." He ended up killing pretty much everyone not everyone in Eregion, a lot of people. Eregion fell, Celebrimbor was captured, tortured, and he never gave away the positions of, I think, any of the rings of power, but later he was, as Penguin said, kebabbed. They stuck a
I
hole
said
up his
it.
butt.
That
and
wasn't
had
me.
him okay, Ken. Sorry, I'm so sorry. He was used as a war banner in I don't know, some other battle or something like that.
Yeah, sure.
Do we
Yeah.
think Amazon can get away with doing that? It's
Shoving a hole up his butt or something else.
I mean,
all of the above.
The show
Game
is
of Thrones
I would
was
say
gory.
no.
Like,
yeah.
I mean, there are horror films that are worse than this, and they go on TV. Like, there's heaps of them on Amazon Prime at the moment that are
Yeah.
just graphic, so they should be fine.
And I mean,
Well, we
not
know
even
the
PG-13.
showrunners have said that they're trying to
But
keep
it's not
this something you
PG-13.
can watch.
It's 16.
And they're trying. They said they were trying to in an interview in Vanity Fair. They said they wanted to keep this in the realm of something an 8-year-old can watch.
Probably the real question
11-year-olds.
is, are we going to see Celebrimbor nude? Because I don't think we're going to see
Good point.
him having a pole shoved up his butt.
Yeah, that's a fair point. There won't be the new. There might be the grotesque kind of violent nature of it, but you're right. There probably won't be the nudity aspect. That's a fair point.
I
mean,
do
I
think.
there could.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You do you.
Okay, I just wanted to say that I think there could still be nudity, but not like full frontal. So you can get the point across without actually shoving it into people's faces. No.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
couple of tits and a down.
I think the 11-year-old remark. First of all, they say, well, it's for 11-year-olds, but sometimes they might want to cover their faces. Well, sometimes 11, 12-year-olds watch like The Silence of the Lambs, and they sometimes cover up their faces. So it's a funny
I was
kind of
gonna say,
remark
have
to
you
make.
seen the stuff the kids watch these days, man?
Yeah,
I'm scared. It's
that's
concerning.
one. That's one. The other thing is, we're just on the onset of season 1, and this stuff isn't going to happen for for a while. So there will be, I guess, the assumption that the audience will grow a little bit with the show, and
True.
so in later seasons they would feel more comfortable with pushing the envelope on certain things. That's two. I also think that they're a bit gussing it up when they're saying, "Oh, it's totally for 11-year-olds," because the show is rated 16, and that's a pretty high rating. I think that's the same rating as Wheel of Time, which I didn't see, but which I'm told by other members of the board here is quite strong.
It has its moments for sure.
Yeah, it has its maybe somewhat graphic moments. The general tone is not like gory
You
or
think
exploitative in. Sorry?
You think so? I don't feel
Um,
like it was.
yeah,
That was just. It was nice. It's a good show, but it wasn't graphic.
I thought it had
No,
it
I
had a
thought
couple
there
moments.
were moments,
Yeah.
like some wounds and stuff like that, which were a little bit more mature than, I don't know, than something that I would expect 11-year-olds to witness. But it wasn't particularly gratuitous in any
Well,
sort
why
of
don't we
way.
use the Lord of the Rings and films as a baseline
Yeah, that's
of
pretty
comparison?
hard
Since we,
for PG-13.
I think the closest it ever got to gore was when Aragorn beheads an orc in the Chamber of Marzabul, and you see what looks like a little spurt fountain of black blood, and that's it. That's the only blood I can think of in that series of movies.
I was actually thinking the last time I saw Fellowship of the Ring and the battle with Lurtz, that's very violent. Like
Yeah, but there's no blood. He cuts off an arm.
One of the ways they got away with it was not having a ton of blood spurting out and having the blood being black.
There was no blood in that battle.
But they had ways of getting around it because a lot of the violence was cut out of the theatrical cut, put back into the extended. And it seems to me like because the extended wasn't meant for theaters, that the MPAA kind of wasn't as strict with it. So like the choking of Deagle, I know that for the theater, they told them that if you had that in the theater, you would get an R. Just don't have it in there. And they put it out and they put it back into the extended. The extended is still PG-13, but it's in there. So
I think technically the extended is unrated. It's kind of common practice for them to re-release a film, and if it's a modified release that's not intended to be shown commercially in theaters will not have a rating, and that's why raunchy comedies, or we can call this is the unrated cut.
Yeah, sure. I don't think it's unrated, but you get the point though. They in other words, within a PG-13, within a 16+, within a whatever, if you're clever enough about it, you can kind of push the envelope. Like the nudity in Titanic, that's PG-13. I mean,
Well, because that's tasteful art. That's completely different.
Sure.
He's painting a picture. Come on.
I mean,
mean,
it's lovely there.
I feel like the PG, the ratings change all the time. What's considered okay or not. It just keeps getting more and more open, and more things
Is
are
it?
accepted for kids to watch. The thing is, a lot of it is readily available on YouTube and everywhere else anyway, so you can't really control. Like
Yes.
they're gonna see it anyway, so
Yes.
you can put a rating on it, but it's not gonna change too much. I don't whether or not that means that they're gonna impale Celebrimbor, or if it means full frontal nudity. It remains to be seen, but what else can they do? I mean, it is an important part of the story. They don't have to show exactly what happens, but you know how in Game of Thrones you see all these people when they get to this slave city, and you see all these people that have just been hung up on the wall or whatever it was. I can't remember. It's been so long since I've seen it. You don't see the actual event, but you see
The
that.
aftermath.
Yeah, as kind of like
Yeah.
you know who it is, but the camera isn't like really full on focused on him. Like
Yeah.
they
The
can do it
piles
like
of
that.
heads in Apocalypto. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, kind of like that.
The
Yeah.
the tons of bodies in Apocalypto. You get the point.
Yeah. And I also think that the way that they can do, like, because it's been a lot of talk since the development of the show started about the whole nudity thing and all of that, and the intimacy coordinator and stuff. An intimacy coordinator is also there because there's going to be people who are going to be naked or partially naked, not necessarily, hooking up, but just being naked on set with hundreds of people around you is a terrifying experience. So having someone to look after you and make sure that you're okay is actually really, really important. And I also think that even if they do full frontal nudity, they would do it in a way that is non-sexual, as in it's natural. It's complete. In a world like this, being naked would be so natural, it wouldn't matter if you were naked or not. Like, it would be just a thing that you are. So they kind of have to do it a tasteful way, but if they try and hide it, it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like they're saying indirectly that it's not okay to do it as well. So I don't know, I'm kind of I don't really, I'm open either way, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. Hiding too much starts feeling like kind of censorship. It feels kind of sanctimonious. I prefer,
Being natural with it, like
Yeah.
and don't sexualize it either. Don't turn it into like there are hundreds of naked people here because we know that sells, just one, like if he's naked when he's hanging on the thing after he's been murdered, so that, don't make a big deal out of it. Like that's the
Good
way they
screensaver
get
there.
around it,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is true.
But given that they did say it was supposed to be like safe for children, I feel like even just Celebrimbor on the pole might be too much.
Again, I
feels like
think
a
I
stretch.
think
Well,
I
it's-
think
it's-
they're
it's a bit-
gussing it up a bit.
Yeah.
Personally, it depends. Obviously, Game of Thrones almost made it a game of trying to shock the viewer as much as possible. It comes from the
Yes.
source material, and where no one is safe. I think for these moments to be powerful, you need to keep these rare. And when you do them, go a little overboard, but then go back, pull back the next scene. Maybe once a season, there should be some big moment like this that pushes the envelope, but keep it few and far between, and you'll be fine.
I will say though, hero deaths tend to be less gory traditionally than villain deaths, because in a hero death, you don't want to be you want the audience to feel sad, not grossed out. And
Yeah.
so you would
That
have
is true.
something like the death of William Wallace, which is extremely graphic. I'm sorry, but it's the
Yeah.
the perfect example. None of the violence is actually shown. You don't see anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
I
Mara
know
as
what's
well.
going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
that's
gonna
a good way.
mention him as well, and I knew you were gonna mention him
We
too.
But also Mara-
cannot go through a single Council of Fans podcast without a reference to Braveheart. So I'm glad we got it out
It's
the way
not this
now.
day, Penguin. It is not this day. No, but I feel rather that his death is pretty graphic. I mean, you don't need to see it
Yeah, but we
for
don't
it
see
to be
it.
graphic.
Yeah, but it's
You hear it. It's
excruciating. Yeah.
implied very, very strongly what's happening to him, and it's super gross. And
So-
one thing that I want to point out is that all these atrocities, of course, do come from Tolkien. He does
Yeah.
these
point.
are the
Yeah, he
events
likes-
that happened,
yeah.
and stuff like Celebrimbor's death. This is a part of his stories, but he does not relish
Yeah.
Yeah.
telling the
It's,
story.
it's another
And I
thing. Like it's like nudity as well. It's like, and just another thing that he breezes over. It's not glorified. It's not
Yes.
magnified. It's just this is what happened.
It's just
It's a
three
storytelling.
bros taking a bath together. I mean, what's up with that? They just escaped
Thank
death.
you.
They're running around naked on the hilltop.
Yeah, but in this, especially violence, I think he takes great care not to be gratuitous about it. And I think this is one element that I really, really, really want to see Amazon adopt. That acknowledge it's there, not showing it would be hypocritical in a way, but don't relish in describing it. Like don't just show him being tortured for, I don't know, episodes on end or anything.
Don't do Tarantino. Yeah.
Oh,
That's what
I'd
yeah.
expect them to show
Please.
as much of this stuff as they can while still being TV-14.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean,
forcing that.
What PG was Game of Thrones? Was it 16?
No,
sure.
Eight.
yeah.
That's a
yeah.
good question.
It depends on the country.
It was
I
also a
guess,
different
but
time.
In America, it's definitely mature.
It's
Yeah.
TVMA, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
the rating. Whereas the Amazon show is the one below,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
which is still pretty. It's strong.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like with
Very low
mature, there's
rating.
not necessarily a limit at all, whereas TV-14 there is.
Mm.
So even
There
though
is-
it is just like
there
one
is a
below,
limit,
it's
yeah.
it's a lot below, really.
There is a limit because TVMA is like R, and there is a higher rating. There's NC-17, and you do get movies like I think Passion of the Christ. People were saying like this should be rated R. This
Yeah.
shouldn't be NC-17, and they're kind of
I
right.
couldn't even finish that, and I love horror
That's
movies.
painful.
Mm.
That's just
It was
painful.
it
hurts.
was 90% torture porn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's painful. It hurts to watch. So yeah, there are limitations to TVMA. Yeah, also.
hmm
So when do we think Celebrimbor will meet his demise? First season, second season, third season? Do we want to go public with any bets?
Oh, well, that's
Well,
an interesting.
Yeah, someone in the chat
What do
had
we
brought up a good point about Charles Edward's age. He's 52 now. We could see him being 60 still playing this character if he's taken all the way through. So I think that's a fairly good argument to err on the side that he might be killed off a little earlier.
Which it
Yeah.
still makes the
Yeah.
question of casting him
Literally,
as an
yeah.
immortal elf.
Yeah.
It makes the question of casting him as an immortal elf all
Yeah.
the more pressing. You
Yeah.
just have to wonder why.
And so in 10 years, if they ever want to revisit the Second Age, are they really going to have to de-age him? Because obviously when he's 60, he's going to look totally different from now when he's like 53. And the de-aging process, it's just not going to look as good. Granted, if it
I
is
don't-
10 years from now,
I don't
technology
think
will
that's
get
in the
better, but
cards.
It's just not a safe bet if you are going to later come back.
Mm.
I don't think they're gonna come back to the Second Age. We had all
Yeah, otherwise they
speculated.
wouldn't shove the whole thing into one thing.
Exactly. I think
It
that's
doesn't seem
off the
totally
table.
likely, but at
I
the
mean,
same
you know,
time,
we-
thought
we-
they'd do
there
something
was
in the
an-
Second Age.
Well, we know there's an option for a spin-off in the contract, and then just as I dig into these sort of things and these rights and media deals, well, spin-offs are basically standard language. You never close the door on potentially milking this franchise or material. So, but if you compress the age, you really don't leave yourself too much to do unless you just go full on fan fiction mode.
And
Meteor
I just
Meteor
wanna
Man's
say-
backstory or something.
Yeah, I just want to add that I don't think if there's any first age, early second age spin-off that Celebrimbor would play a particularly big role, seeing as his story isn't particularly interesting up to
Yeah.
mid second age. I mean, he's a part of many events, but by no means he's at the forefront of the of the plot line or anything. So I think it could be very, very easy to just skip him or recast him as
As the younger. Yeah.
with a younger
Particularly
actor.
outside of what this show's going to be covering, Celebrimbor basically doesn't do anything.
And yeah,
Or you
exactly.
just keep
Unless
create a
you're talking about
CGI, or you just
Galadriel.
create a CGI cutout character and put him in the background of select scenes, so you can see him there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sort of.
But, you know,
Say they
give
do
him,
like a Galadriel spinoff, though. Now, the chances of that happening are obviously pretty slim, but if they do,
Yeah.
chances are they are going to show a couple of flashbacks or something like that with Celebrimbor in them. And in those scenarios, granted, it's only going to be a couple of scenes, so it's going to be a lot more doable. But still, having an actor who's 60-something is going to be hard to de-age. And it's just not a really good casting choice if you're considering having him or just considering the possibility of having him come back in the future at all.
I really don't think that's a thing. The idea of bringing back, especially Celebrimbor of all people, if they do, it would be like a younger Celebrimbor, and they're already setting some of these characters up as having younger versions of themselves. See Galadriel, for instance. So
True.
they'll just, if they really need it, they'll find a way.
Or they have like a child Galadriel and then Morphin
Yeah, the
Clark
Kid
is there.
Galadriel, yeah.
Maybe
okay.
that'll
There's
be
not a
fun,
third one?
Budge,
Wow.
for the sequel or the prequel.
Ah.
Hmm.
that would be
Ah,
nice,
for the
actually.
prequel of the prequel's prequel, yeah.
Yes, the prequel of time.
well, that's a new breakup line. Oh, you're not right for this. You're not right for this production. But if we make a prequel, we'll cast you.
Yeah. Well, they do kind of look a little bit similar if you put their pictures up next to each other, like we did before. I don't know. Could maybe I don't know, burst that bubble for Amazon. Sorry, guys.
All
We're
right, so
totally not getting paid to say this.
have we seen any interesting questions from the comments that we could try to attempt to answer or give our thoughts on?
They're having a very lively discussion, but I haven't seen any.
I
If anyone has any questions, please feel free to jump in.
Looks like Fellowship of Fans has been spotted in the comments.
Oh, look at that! I wonder who that is.
I guess Amazon. I guess he's escaped Amazon's clutches. If
A
that is
wild
what indeed
color.
happened.
There's a quick question here. When do you all think the next teaser trailer will be released?
I'd say.
months.
Oh, I would think it would have to come into late May, maybe sooner, maybe early June, because we're getting close to the 3 months out. 3 months out from the release. The teaser was mediocre, didn't really for a lot of people, so they have to begin that blitz and get people aware and excited. Right now, if people are aware, they're generally ambivalent. So that has to change, and so this would be the next few weeks would be critical for getting a good trailer out there. Just my 2
It's really
cents.
crazy to think we've
It's
only
also-
got, I think, less than 4 months now until the show's actually out. So we really should be expecting a trailer really soon.
Yeah, and we're almost like halfway between the marketing material that we've seen, the big drop that was like at the beginning of February, and the actual release of the show. So we're like almost halfway, and there's been hardly any new content during this time apart from a couple of picks.
Well, actually, wasn't there that Portuguese trailer and let's see,
Brazilian,
there's okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
American.
Yeah,
that's
Comic
tiny,
Cons are in
yeah.
there. Like we're going into Comic Con season.
Oh,
There's quite a bit
that's
there.
possible,
I do
yeah.
know that
Comic Con.
Comic Con
Yeah.
is in July, so it's a little bit closer. We might get to see something before then because I think the Comic Cons isn't a teaser. I think they might do like a full-on trailer.
Comic Con
around
seems.
that time.
Yeah, I was looking at the timing, and Comic Con seems a little late for the main trailer, and it seems a little bit early for for the last trailer. The way these things go is they have multiple trailers, and there's usually a final trailer that airs a week before it.
Actually,
So
with-
I would. So I was
Yeah.
thinking that Comic Con would be a great time to drop a scene or something like that, or maybe some
Oh,
exclusive content
real.
for influencers or the something like.
I think I'm drawing a little bit from the experience from The Wheel of Time here. So The Wheel of Time came out late November. The first trailer came out on the 2nd of September, as a matter of fact. So that was what, 2 months and a half out. That was the first a little less than 2-minute trailer, and then the final trailer dropped a couple of weeks before the release. I think 3 weeks or 4 weeks, maybe something like that. So I think for the Rings of Power, a potential Comic-Con trailer would be a really good choice for that final full-length, like 2.5-minute trailer.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
I could see what you said, Penguin, earlier. Something coming sooner, something coming late May, early June, something like that, and then the next trailer dropping for Comic-Con.
Yeah,
Potentially.
I agree. There's a couple questions in here about when do we think season 2 would start filming?
Hasn't it
Oh.
already kind
Don't
of?
we know
I've-
this? Like,
it's-
I
in
believe
a
it
couple
start-
of months, I think.
I believe
keep
it starts
forgetting the
in
date.
August.
Yeah, well, if pre
Something like that.
did we lose someone? Who did we lose?
No, we didn't lose. We
Oh.
Gained
We're being,
someone.
We
we're being
gained.
infiltrated.
We gained.
Morning,
Woo!
boss.
Speak of the devil, and he shall appear.
Hello,
Uh,
fellowship.
Do it with the right accent,
He
though.
accidentally joined. No, it's actually Jeff. He's just he's taken over for Fellowship now.
Oh yeah.
Hello, hello,
he-
hello.
hello.
Celebrity.
It speaks.
Woo!
It's
It
me.
speaks.
How was do you guys reveal everything about Celebrimbor then?
Yes.
Do you reveal all the leaks? I'm joking. Don't get
All of them. We've emptied the vault.
No,
Yeah.
right. Shame
Per
on you.
Amazon. Per Amazon's orders, we've shared everything we knew.
But hope you guys I think you look like really good today. So yeah, just want to jump in and say hello. But yeah, I think
Awesome.
I'll leave you guys to it
Thanks
then.
for
So yeah,
joining
have fun.
Thanks for coming on your own show. Appreciate
Thanks
it.
for coming on.
You're always welcome here.
Thanks for lending your
you.
presence.
Alright, see you later.
Bye.
That was
A
lovely.
little celebrity guest there on the end.
Yeah,
Okay.
Fantastic.
a little cameo.
So yeah, if pre-production was beginning at the early end of this year, I'd say we're looking at the middle to the middle late part of the year for actual production. I would say.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
do think we'll start getting stuff, not even just leaks, I mean like proper press stuff.
Yeah.
When it starts gearing up towards filming, there'd be some minor casting going on, We'll know. I mean, everybody will know, not just us. you know.
Yeah, it's gonna be. It was pretty secretive to begin with for season 1. It's gonna be a lot harder to keep it secret for season 2.
Especially when it's not being produced in an island in the middle of the,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of a pandemic, yeah.
in the middle
So
of the pandemic
from
as well.
from Teleporno Gaming, got an interesting question. Theo's sword, what do you think it is? Is it attached to Adar's story? Is it girthing, or is it something inherently new?
We actually talked about this
My
a little
brain
bit
just died.
on the second age show last week. Lakitia, do you want to take it away?
I honestly don't remember. It's quite
Well,
late.
I think
Please.
wasn't it your speculation that it was maybe this talisman that Adar is
Using.
Oh,
seeking
that's
is
true.
maybe
I
the
think
is
that
maybe the
happened.
sword. Yeah,
I swear I was there.
in spirit at least you were
Yeah.
there.
Okay. So what he said, yeah, basically we did mention the option that maybe that's a relic from the past that Adar is seeking.
Yeah.
So what could that potentially be? So is that another famous sword that we know of, perhaps?
Yeah. I will say, I really just think I don't want to be too negative, too dismissive about the idea of it being Gorthang, because these showrunners are mining stuff from the first stage. They are quite a few things actually. At the same time, it really just looks like somebody in Weather Workshop, who are doing the weapons, by the way, thought that an obsidian blade would look quite cool. They were pretty right, I actually think. And
It looks a little too fantastical for me, but that's just taste.
the hilt and stuff does, yeah.
I
But,
think-
that's one of those places where I'll take the fantastical touch.
Yeah, I agree.
Here and there, it's good seasoning.
Yeah, especially if it is meant to be like a first stage relic, right? I think maybe a little bit more
If it
fantastical
is.
is
If it
is.
maybe cool.
Yeah.
I just I've ended the poll here for when the audience thinks Celebrimbor might be killed off. 42% believe season 2, 30% believe season 3, 18% believe season 1, and season 4 or later 9%. So I think there's a pretty clear idea that probably most people think somewhere in between season 3 and 4.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
Yeah.
Season 2 and 3, you mean?
Season 2 and 3, yes. Sorry, yeah.
Yes.
I don't have my
Yeah.
glasses on. Forgive me.
It's late.
Yeah.
Is it?
It's only 4 o'clock for me. What are you guys talking about?
It's quarter of an
It's
hour
late
past
somewhere,
midnight.
just like they say it's a happy hour somewhere. It's late somewhere.
Oh,
That's
it's
a
the
good-
happy hour all the time.
That's a good rebuttal.
Yeah.
The Angriel and Girthang are not in The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
But from what we understand of the rights, if something is mentioned, if Turin is mentioned in Lord of the Rings or appendices, they can then look into those materials that go into him more and pull from.
He is mentioned, Turin.
Yeah, he
Yes.
is.
Mm,
Although completely in
In Rivendell.
passing, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
But
all they
it's,
need.
uh,
That's all they need.
That's right.
Maybe
Yeah,
So
but
if
there's
it's
no,
not,
like,
or
description.
mention or hint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's no
They
like
can use.
description of who he is or what he's done. It's just like, oh, you would be remembered like Turin,
Mm.
Yeah.
you know?
once I read the Silmarillion and read that line again, I said, okay, you got Baron, okay, awesome guy. Turin, wait, mention.
Well,
Did we
Sorry,
lose someone again, or did
I,
we gain someone?
Some-
We got rearranged.
Something's happened.
Ew.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, loud and clear.
The stream just went down for some reason.
Is the stream down, guys, or can you hear us? Because I can see it still. I'm watching.
I can see and hear everyone.
I think
Yeah.
the stream has a little bit of a delay anyway.
yeah, it's gonna take like 20 seconds for people to.
Yeah, okay.
tell us
We should be back up, but that was very strange. I'm not sure what happened there.
It was Jeff. I know it was Jeff.
Yeah.
It's always Jeff.
We started talking about Girthang, and that was it. That was the end.
How
Coincidence? I don't
Nikki,
think so.
how dare you impugn our new master and overlord like that?
Yeah. Mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. Well, I think we're heading towards overtime now.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think
we have
I
anything
think
else on
we
the agenda?
should wrap up. Does anyone have? If you have a good question, now's the time to fire it in the comments.
Yes. Ask away.
Yeah. Any final questions? We can jump into that.
I do have one while we're waiting for the comments to catch up. Nikki, is that a filter you have, or do you actually have elf ears on your head?
No, I have elf ears on my headphones.
Okay.
They're
I
my personal custom-made headphones that I made myself.
Oh, fantastic.
Using like bobby pins.
You should sell those on your website.
I am trying so hard to. I really want to manufacture them, but it's really hard for me, a non-famous streamer and actress who no one really knows. I don't have that many followers. I can't just go to someone and be like, "Hey, I want to make these," and they'll be like, "Yes, let's do it," you know. So I
Not
need
with
to
that
get
attitude, you
famous
can't.
No,
There you go.
come on.
All right, we've got a
I'm
question.
Ooh.
Do you think that they are trying to compress the timeline too much in the show? Unfortunately, we asked for a good question, so can someone else give us one?
Oh.
He was asking if they were trying to compress too much into the show, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I'm not a huge fan of the timeline compression. I understand why they want to do it. Now,
Yeah.
if they start adding in the backstories of all the Nazgul, trying to do other stuff, hey, let's create a dragon with Smog and Glorong, I'd say yes, they are definitely trying to do too much. But it's really hard to say at this point, because
Yeah,
sure,
it
we
really depends. It's
The
really
thing
hard
that-
to
It's easy
say.
to go
Yeah.
overboard with it. And
Yeah.
by the way, that was a
thing-
good
yeah.
question. That was just a joke.
Yeah, the thing that makes me think that it could potentially be too much is all the digressions that we already know about to the first stage. So stuff like Tyrion, that's actually before the first stage technically, but certainly Finrod in the Bragola, like all this stuff, that's like, okay, you don't have anything better to do with this screen time? Like it feels like kind of digression that I'm not sure, like, it could be seen as the writers kind of like free associate, like sometimes when I don't like a movie, the thing I write about it is that the script feels stream of consciousness. It's just like someone's writing, and then an idea comes into their mind. They write it. They keep on like it has this kind of, and a lot of the first age stuff that's put into this show, to me, seems like it could be that sort of thing. And with the time compression and with everything, that could possibly be too much.
Yeah.
I gotta say, I'm surprised that they got the permission from the Tolkien estate to mash up Celebrimbor's storyline with Isildur's in the first place. As far as
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
concerned, that is a pretty big, divergence from the source material. So
From
I was when we had these debates before whether there could be such time compression, I was always firmly, representing the opinion that would never happen. They would never allow them to do that. I mean, the time compression is there within the Lord of the Rings adaptations as well, but that's like a 17
Well,
or
that's
year-old gap.
collapsing 20 years. Nothing happens.
Yeah,
It is essentially
exactly.
taking the history of the Roman Empire from founding to its collapse
Yeah.
to let's just put it all in the reign of Caesar.
Would-
Yeah.
Which
Yep.
eventually would end up not making sense, like, because time compressing those storylines, if they are planning on eventually going into, say, the Lord of the Rings, which I don't know if they are, but it's too close. Which is then, okay, so Aragorn is then born all of a sudden really, really when is that gonna happen? Like, it doesn't make sense. So,
That's
yeah.
different, but yeah. I feel
Yeah.
like if they were going for the third age, that would work totally differently, though.
They might, but we don't
Yeah,
know
but
if they're
that would
gonna do
work
it in the future.
differently. Yeah.
Well, I doubt they're going to go into the third age from here because there's no demand whatsoever for a Lord of the Rings remake. Last week when Kyle and I stayed up for the event in Brazil, the totally exciting, not at all lackluster, exclusive Brazilian footage. We put out a poll, and I think it was something like 75 to 25 were not in favor of retreading Lord of the Rings anytime soon. Now, if this show is a success, that could change, but I bet that would only move the numbers to 50-50.
most
Yeah,
people
yeah.
also know that if there was a remake, it'd be done by Amazon, and most people also just don't want Amazon doing anything with the Lord of the Rings, so that's probably a pretty big factor. But like if Warner
but
Bros.
also, yeah.
let's just say was going to do that, there'd still be plenty of flashback, I'm sure, but it would be much less than if Amazon was doing it.
Yeah. But also, just the events of the first age predating the Lord of the Rings, much more messy than the second age, because you have different things. Like, there's not a through line like there is in the second age. It reads more like actual history, which is, oh, Angmar is doing some business here, the Hobbits are doing something totally unrelated there, the Rohirrim is, like, it's much more fragmented, and it's not, would be much harder to make into a satisfying narrative within the context of a show.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think
Yeah.
I've said this before, but to me, it's kind of like the next best thing. Like if we're not going to get an early second age
Yeah.
show, and we're then being able to see all those events happening is
Yeah.
the next best thing.
As long as they
Well-
do it the right way, like I'm not too worried about the time compression. What I'm worried about is the execution of the time compression.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Well, my ideal show would have always been centered in the late Second Age with a gratuitous usage of flashbacks to add context to everything that happened early on. I'd even make the existence of the rings or their role in all this kind of a little bit of a secret because the new about that, and I'd kind of use men as our framing point to understand the world because I've always thought that trying to use elves as the immortal, ethereal beings they are would just be a little hard for us to relate to them.
Perfectly.
That does bring up a good point, though. Very, very brief point, but an important one, which is I think Numenor is hogging way too much attention with fans. as compared to the elves and Celebrimbor and stuff, which I think is just as interesting.
Well, that's partly our fault because we 80% of
Yes.
what we've been leaked has came from the Numerar sets because that's just what.
That's also
Those are the
true, but
people willing to talk.
Yeah, yeah, but
that's
I
just
do
what
think
people are
yes.
into. You know, you can't blame them. They've never seen Numenor before, and they're really excited about that. So,
We also haven't seen Linden before. We haven't seen Origion before. So
of course,
I
we
don't
haven't
know.
seen the elves in their prime before either, or
Yeah.
some part of their prime. I agree, but like for me, I'm much more interested in what happens in Eregion and in Linden.
Yeah,
But,
me too.
I
That's the
absolutely
point.
Too.
understand why the people
Yes.
are super hyped. So about Numenor as well. So, you know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, I just want to say to everyone that tuned in, I want to say thank you. Like and subscribe. Follow TolkienTube on his channel on YouTube and Twitter. And please buy stuff from Nikki's store so she can quit her job and become a full-time actress.
Yes, please. Thank you very much. Please put the link somewhere so they can find it.
Yes, we'll make sure that link is in the description there.
Thank you.
All right. See everyone next time.
All right.
Bye,
Everyone,
guys.
thanks for joining us.
Bye.